Hello there folks, welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash. I am your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. Let me be one of the first, I hope, to wish you a happy new year for 2024. And hasn't the last year flown by? I remember sitting here or near here a year ago and having a conversation about life auditing and the processes which I use to improve the future year ahead for me. And I shared that with you. And all of a sudden, another year has arrived. A year is behind, we've been successful, we've navigated it, we've survived it. And I always really enjoy the breaking of a new year. I do feel that it is a victory. I'm not one of these people who sort of harbour on the years that have gone by when I was younger and fitter and more vibrant. Actually, I revel in the maturity which comes with the passing years and the ability that I'm more able to cope with life now than I was as a younger person. And I look forward to the adventures and excitement that the new year will bring. And I also use this as an opportunity to reflect on what was good in the last year, what was bad, and in so doing, I promise myself and I plan to do more of the good things and less of the bad things. Because, you know, life is an experimental journey. Sometimes we'll embark upon endeavours, hobbies, activities, which are not really for us at all. They're not going to work out. And it's important to know when to sort of cut that away, move on to something else. So it's very much part of looking at the year ahead. And I got to tell you, at 50, I'm going to be 54 next month. For me, I am more excited about the prospect of a new year ahead of me now than I ever was as a young person. Because, you know, I put it down to that sort of more weathered eye which I have now looking at the year ahead. So a year ago I sat here and I shared with you my life auditing process, and I stand by everything that I said in that video, and I still apply that process in the way that I plan out my future year. And I'm not going to repeat any of what I said, because basically you could just as easily go back, look at that video, and, you know, rather than me sit here and repeat it. Suffice to say, I am much more of an advocate of life auditing rather than New Year's resolutions, which in my experience and the experience of observing other people tends to be an example of people setting lofty ideas for themselves which they are never likely to achieve because it just hasn't been planned out. And then, you know, after some sort of semi-activity within those themes, they give up and they feel bad about themselves. It actually affects their self-confidence and their self-esteem going forward. Life auditing, much more of a sensible approach. I will share just a little bit of that process with you. If you don't want to go back and look at the video, I will leave a link to my life auditing video down below in the show notes. But basically, life auditing means breaking your life up into a number of different categories. So, you know, for the sake of argument, you can say your career, or your relationships, or your health, or your fitness, or your hobbies, whatever it may be, right? You can break as many categories down as you want from the life that you live, the style that you wish to exhibit in the year ahead. And when you've broken it down into those categories, in each category, you write a paragraph in your journal, diary, piece of paper, whatever it may be. You write a statement which says what your ideal goal is in that area. If we're going to use fitness as an example, you might say, by the end of this year, I want to be able to run a 10-kilometer fun run in my town or whatever, or just for fun, whatever it may be. You've got a goal. Now, when you've got your ideal activity, you can work backwards towards that goal. You can plan it out. You can, you know, set little milestones along the way which you intend to achieve, and you can actually plan it. You know, things like starting to go for a walk every day for 10 minutes, 20 minutes a day by week 2, 30 minutes a day by week 4. Then you can start run jogging. Maybe you want to buy yourself a new pair of trainers. Maybe you want to buy a sports tracker watch so you can monitor your performance as you're going along. Make it more interesting and exciting. But when you've got a goal and a specific goal to target, working backwards towards that goal is a lot easier. For me, That's life auditing, setting in place different sort of milestones along the way, after 4 months, after 6 months, after 9 months, and then achieving your goal maybe after a year. It might be an achievable goal after a month or 6 weeks. See what I mean? It's tailored to the actual situation that you aim to achieve. So today, I've used the word several times already, goals. Today I am going to give you some tips on how you can be better prepared to achieve the goals which you set for yourself in the year ahead. Right, now I use these elements of goal setting all of the time. As you know, I am a real strong proponent of journaling because it allows me to focus on goals, strategize my life, and then tactically deliver on those goals as we go along. So, the first tip I have for you in achieving a goal is making a decision of the goal which you intend to achieve. Part of the life auditing process. You've identified you want to get, we're going to continue with the example, get a bit fitter, okay? So we will now have a goal. I want to achieve better fitness. Congratulations, right? You're probably halfway there. When you've decided on the goal that you intend to achieve, you've actually got a plan to begin with. Now we're off and running. The next step I will say to you is valuable in achieving a goal is writing it down. Now you might think that sounds a bit innocuous. What difference does it make if I write it down on a bit of paper, or whether I just think to myself, I want to get a bit fitter and I want to strategize on how I'm going to do that? Gentlemen, the difference is when you write something down, it suddenly takes physical form. It is real. It is no longer a manifestation purely of your mind. You have taken a pen and you have written it down onto a piece of paper. It now exists in the physical world. And once something takes form like that, normally your brain and your thinking processes will swing into action, and when it's physical, it's a real thing. And when it's a psychological step really in making your strides towards achieving that goal. Write it down. And I suggest, like me, right, it's worth investing in a journal. Just a simple notebook, hardback notebook. It can be any type of notebook. You can go fancy and have a leather one if you like. If you want to know the one I use, it's a Leuchtturm because I quite like the paper because it works well with a fountain pen. But my little A5 Leuchtturm notebook is my life journal. And within it, I capture my goals, the things I do, the things I'm planning on doing, and my life audit activity as well. But when you write it down, it suddenly becomes real. Now, the next thing you want to do, when you've written it down, you've kind of shared it with yourself. You are now making it real. The next thing you do is share it with somebody else, all right? A trusted friend, a family member, maybe somebody who shares an interest within you. Because when you share your goal with somebody else, you now get what we call an accountability buddy, because it's somebody who is likely to hold you to account over that goal at some point in the future. And again, psychologically, it's so important because if you tell your buddy Jimmy, right? You say to your buddy Jimmy when you meet him down the gentleman's club when you're playing a few games of bridge. You say to Jimmy, do you know what, Jimmy? I've decided to get fit this year. I'm going to run a 10-kilometer fun run in our town in July, in 6 months' time. And he thinks, oh, right, okay. And you'll probably have a discussion about it. You might have a discussion of how you're going to achieve it. And Jimmy takes on board what you've said. The next time you're down the club and you're playing a game of baccarat, Jimmy will say, oh, how's that running thing you've got going on? How are you doing? Are you making good strides in your goal to achieve that 10-kilometer level of fitness by July? And the thing is, you as an individual, Jimmy, you want to gain his respect because you're friends, you're mutual associates. The last thing you want to do after 6 weeks is say, do you know what, Jimmy? It was too tough, I packed it in. I'll try it again next year. Or I had a little injury, so I had to stop, or something like that. When you've got an accountability buddy, psychologically, you will want to be able to say to them the next time that you meet in the club, Yes, I'm doing really well. I am up to 5 kilometers at the moment. I'm ahead of my intended target and it's looking good. I'm really looking forward to it. In fact, I think, I might take up some sponsorship to make some money for a local charity by this running endeavor I'm doing. Why don't you join me? It could be a bit of fun for us both to do. Do you see what I mean? Now your accountability buddy keeps you honest, keeps you going. You want to, do well so that you can have something positive to report to, and it'll, somebody who's taking an interest in your progress makes you want to achieve more. Remember when you were a child and you came home from school and you'd done something, you'd started a new book or something in school, and your parents would pat you on the back and say, well done. It's the same sort of thing, but just in an adult environment. It makes you feel good, gives you a warm, fuzzy feeling when you can say to somebody else, I'm doing well, I'm on track, I'm going to achieve my goal. Now, my next tip for you is to map out this journey towards success, because let's be honest, right? Success doesn't just happen. It has to be carefully planned, strategically and tactically applied. It really just involves thinking about it. And remember, when you're planning that journey in your life audit process, like I said, you've got your intended ideal situation. You're running 10 kilometers in 6 months' time. You're working backwards from it. We're planning that journey towards that successful achievement of that goal, whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be a 10K race. Could be a qualification you're seeking in work. Could be a promotion opportunity which is coming up and you're working towards it. Whatever that paragraph you've written out is your intended target, we're working backwards towards it. We're mapping out that journey. And I will say one thing to you. Remember, and this is really important, nobody climbs Mount Everest all in one go, all right? Don't think you can leap from A to B without actually a few stops along the way. Remember, when you're climbing Everest, you've got to get to base camp first. Then you've got to camp 1. Then you've got to camp 2. And then when you're ready and everything's in place, you strike out for the summit and you achieve your goal. And then you've got to remember, you've got to plan your way back down as well. It's all part of that mapping out process. Break it down into as many parts as is necessary to get you to that final destination. Because believe me, when you map it out, when you plan it, it's going to be such an easier journey than just trying to find your way willy-nilly. Now, my next tip for you is going to sound kind of obvious, but a lot of people fall short at this point, and it is get started on it. Because I know so many people who intend to run a marathon, or intend to get a promotion in work, or intend to go back to college and get a qualification. They prevaricate about it for so long, the opportunity passes them by, and before you know it, it's no longer relevant. So my advice is, yes, get planning, get yourself an accountability buddy, do all of those things, make a decision, write it down, get a journal, put it in there. But let's get started on this endeavor. And let's do it today, all right? Even if it means we haven't fully completed our plan yet, let us begin that journey. Because believe me, once we get started, it gets easier as we go along and along. If you sit there thinking about it, it becomes an overwhelming obstacle. If you think to yourself, I've got to climb Everest, I'm never going to achieve it. It's not going to happen. Remember, break it down, get it done, but get started on it. Let's get walking towards base camp. We can worry about the next steps afterwards. And don't worry if things change. Remember, no plans are, rarely get by without needing some form of adjustment along the way. Something's going to happen. You might get an injury when you're out running. You might have a setback in work towards that promotion. But whatever it is, nothing's going to happen unless we begin. Let's start moving forwards. Worry about the planning and everything else afterwards, but let's just begin today. Because believe me, it's the hardest part of the mission is to start it. And my final tip for you is keep going, all right? Just keep going. Once you've got started, as I say, it's the hardest thing, but once we get started, we now have momentum, all right? Once the ball starts rolling, it gets faster and faster. And the same goes for us as we are driving towards that first step. We've done all the work, we've done the planning, we've got an accountability buddy, we've made the decision, we've written it all down. All we've got to do is keep going, because we're on our way now. We will get to that first goal. Focus on that first. Don't worry about Everest. Focus on base camp. We will work towards those other steps afterwards. But it's going to be easier with momentum. Don't worry if your performance plateaus a little bit. That's perfectly normal. Sometimes we, achieve things really quickly, and then it's really hard to just get those final steps towards the end. That's perfectly natural. Keep our motivation going, keep driving towards our intended goals. Sometimes we may have to alter those goals. Maybe we were over-ambitious and we set our target too high. Rather than giving up the endeavour, just move that target a little bit closer. Keep that momentum rolling, because when we get to that target, we're then in a better position to move forwards again. Rather than having the target so far away, we're never going to get there. As I say, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. You've got to move it around sometimes to make it work for us. And just keep going forward. And remember to celebrate your successes, all right? When you get to that first point, when we get to base camp in Everest, let's, break out the champagne. Let's have a moment to celebrate. We've done something that perhaps 6 months ago we never thought we could do. And it will motivate us, it will inspire us, it will keep our momentum going, and then when we head to Camp 2, we will feel stronger and better for it. And when we get to Camp 2, we do the same again. We celebrate, we revel in our moment of glory, and then we move forward, and we move forward, and we keep going until we achieve that success. So there we go, folks. Those were my tips for you, which may help you with a little bit of goal setting in preparation for your New Year life audit. It's what I'll be doing. I do it every year. I look at the things that I intend to achieve in the year ahead, learning from what I was successful at, what I failed at, what I make inroads towards in the previous year, and I carry that forward into the next year. I've got loads of things which I'm going to share with you as the year unfolds, as I head towards my targets to be the best version of myself in 2024. You're never going to be the complete article. We're always moving towards maybe a theoretical version that we would like to be in the future. It's called Chap Nirvana for a reason. We may never reach it, but it's the journey itself which is fun. So I hope this has been of some benefit to you. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more like this and come on the journey to Chap Nirvana alongside me, click the subscribe button. If you'd like to support the channel, you can just leave a comment in the comment section below, or you could buy me a coffee, drop me an email, or you can even become a patron. I make additional video content every week for my patrons, and you'll find the links to all of that, along with my original life audit video, in the show notes below. So until the next time, get your life audit done, and I will see you again very soon.